as well.
It'll be quick because this is about the time I get a sinking spell every day and it results in an afternoon nap. So I'm not going to spend too much time, but in listening to what's been said today, I've been pretty impressed, and I love quotes, and some quotes came to mind. For instance, people are wondering how Mississippi got where it is. Well, we went from being a democratic state, skipped conservative, went right to progressivism with Haley Barbour, and now we've got Kate Reeves jamming it down our throat as a progressive every day of the week. Then we have some other quotes. Mark Levin said, if you want to fix the country, you got to get rid of the incumbents. If you want to fix Mississippi, you got to get rid of the incumbents. That'll fix the country. Too many people have been there too long with the wrong ideas. I mean, you can't even have a town meeting with Palazzo. He hasn't had one. He's been in office 4 years. What? That's our representative? Then, my all-time favorite quote is from John Wayne, and this applies to us too. Life is tough, but it's tougher if you're stupid. That's right. And then the guys who were talking Law and Order earlier, Nelson Mills, a favorite author of mine, he recently wrote a book called Radiant Angel. And he was talking to a colleague and he said, if it's worth shooting twice. Ammo is cheap. If you've got a good shooting stance, you're not moving fast enough. So I'm glad to hear a little chuckle here. We were really serious. Anyway, the state constitution basically, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm doing this on the fly, the state constitution requires the state to provide an adequate free education system to the citizens of the state. That's it, basically. MAEP was put into effect to evaluate that education system and give the legislature some means of trying to fund it. Now, the legislature doesn't fund MAEP fully every year because they have different ratings and so forth, and they have to use some intelligence, which, you know, I mean, we don't think that exists in Jackson, but they have to use that. And consequently, some districts get fully funded, some districts don't. Nobody gets as much money as they want. But it is a system, and it's got a rating system, and they seem to be able to discriminate between districts and provide money for them. Now, this November, we're going to have an amendment, actually 2 proposed amendments on the ballot. The first one is 42. 42 is very general, and it says Mississippi will adequately fund an effective education system. Everybody wants that, right? But if you vote for that, what they're not telling you is that they sold it to school administrators by claiming that 42 amendment will fully fund MAEP. All the school administrators want that, but that has nothing to do with it. It's a selling standpoint, selling thing. The other thing that they won't tell you is that if there's any disputes between MAEP and what the legislator funds, that dispute is going to be decided by an elected judge in Hinds County. Now, how straight do you think that's going to be? You saw what happened during the Cochran-McDaniel election. 4 elected judges in Hinds County, and they rotate cases. Now, if you go to your computer and you pull up Better Schools for Better Jobs, which is the parent organization for the 108,000 signatures that came up with Amendment 42, you know what you're going to find on top of that? Mississippi NAACP. And their poster child for 42 is the Cleveland District. The Cleveland District claims that they're underfunded by $12 million. Well, if you look at the Cleveland District is at risk academically. It's on the watch for academics, and it's rated D as far as performance. So what we see with 42 is if Cleveland goes to the circuit court judge in Hinds County and says, we need $12 million more. We don't need to get more efficient. We just need more money to spend, and that'll take care of it. And the judge in Hinds County says, sure. Why don't we take that from a high performance district like Kettle, Mississippi, is rated B and they've got an HP, a high performance designation. Obviously, those guys are doing good with their money. They don't need it. Put it into Cleveland so they can blow more money in. So that's in a nutshell, Dick Przybelski's 42. Now, 42A was proposed by the legislature because they have the authority of putting an amendment on the ballot to counter one that's going to be there. So the legislature didn't really like 42A, but to get their 42, but to get 42A on, they had to come up with a statement, and 42A basically says the Mississippi legislature will fund an adequate education system, but they will have no enforcement power. This came out of the State House. I don't know what it means. Nobody knows what it means. But it gives you a choice in voting for 42, which effectively puts funding for Mississippi schools in the hands of the NAACP, or you can vote for the legislature for something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, on the ballot, you're going to go in and you'll have the option of voting for 42, voting for 42A, or you can vote against both of them. If you go to vote against both of them, then you have the option of saying, if I were to vote for one of these, I would vote for 42 or 42A. But you've already voted against both of them. Then you can skip the entire section, and that goes in as a no vote for the amendment. And the amendment won't fly unless 40% of the voters vote for it. Everybody's got this down cold, right? To pass a test on it. This is crazy. It took me almost a week of phone conversations with Forrest to figure this out, and I don't understand it. And I don't know if I'm presenting this as being confused, you've got it, because I'm confused. But I would say vote against both of them.
Amen.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. I don't take questions because I don't have any answers.
Let me just make a comment. Been doing a little research on this adequate education situation. Just been doing a little research on it, and for some of you already passed this out. This idea that they work on an assumption that there is not enough money going into the education system. So, because the legislature hasn't adequately funded them according to this mysterious formula, then there's obviously our children are suffering. That's the premise. For anybody who wants afterwards, I'm going to give you a copy of the State of Mississippi education budget. Now, just to give you an example, this piece of paper represents 62% of all the money collected in the state of Mississippi. That comes out for everything, okay? Not just education, for everything. That comes up with a grand total of $4.6+ billion, with a B, okay? Just kind of give you an example. This is why I'm saying you should not vote for either of this, because it works on the assumption that we are not paying enough. Here on line 2, it says that we're paying $1.7 billion for instruction. That's for some of you teachers, like my wife. That's classroom teachers, right? Now remember, it's 4.6. When you throw all that they can think of into the budget to try to make that number from the classroom match the number that we are paying, they come up with $2.7 billion, which still leaves another $3 billion short, or $2 billion short. Well, guess what? If you look at it in administration, now this is for the Board of Education, these are the people right here down the street in Jackson, the State Board of Education. Would you believe they are spending $185 million to administer in Jackson the $4.6 billion. Here's another little example. Now, this is coming. We have a complete, this is their report from the Mississippi Department of Education budget, 76 pages. But this is the summary sheet of it. To give you an example, they say they're not getting enough money. The school administration, this is the districts, 152 school districts, or just the district, not the kids, not the teachers, not the books, not the school buses, just the administration is spending the Board of Education here is paying $185 million. The local school boards, their administration, are spending $238 million to administer the schools. Give you some examples. And like I said, I'm not going to. Some of us in business have lived in, you know, if you're a businessman, you live and die on a spreadsheet, right? Balance sheets. Here's they're saying that we need to improve our education system. Right now, according to the 2012-2013 budget, we spent $122 million to improve our education system. I had one of my Democratic friends tell me, he says, Bill, if you wanted to teach, if you knew somebody over at the Board of Education here in Jackson, and you wanted to teach the alphabet, a better way to teach the alphabet, instead of teaching it A, B, C, D problems, if you taught it backwards, starting with Z, there's somebody who would give you $1 million, Mr. Jeffrey, just to try it out. Well, guess where that money comes from? That's the $122 million. Sum total of this $4.6 billion. If you just take, and what they'll tell you, well, you know, we're only spending 4.55% at the Board of Education down here in Jackson for administration, and we're only spending 5.89% for the district's administration. Well, that's like 12% of $4.6 billion. So if we cut out those two groups, you would cut out $456 million. That should be in the classroom. Yeah. Okay? This is why the teachers are having to go in their own personal pockets and buy school supplies that the legislature has set aside already. They couldn't get the superintendents to put this in. One second. What they did is set a separate budget item out that the school kids would get, the school teachers would get that money. Yes, Mike? Okay. Okay. So I'm just trying to tell you, don't vote for either one of these before they issue one more, before we give them one more penny. Make them justify the $4.6 billion, 62% of the budget that we're spending now.
How many school districts you say?
Now remember, there are only 82 counties. Okay, 152.
That's almost 2 per county.
That's right.
Well, some cities have, don't do it.
Up in Boulder County,
That's 6.
they have 6.
Yeah.
And they're all failing except for one. That was in Mount Bayou. And I know the guy, Mr. Crockett, who was the superintendent in Mount Bayou. They decided to consolidate it down to 2, and they fired him because he wouldn't spend all the money that the state gave him. There was $1 million that he didn't spend that year, even though his school system, Mount Bayou, 3 schools, had the only passing rate. Okay, of all of them. So, yes, sir.
Real quick, to show you how important this is, my wife was one of the people invited to a focus group in DeSoto County. They paid $100 for anybody that would come for an hour and a half, which is a lot of money. All you had to do is drive up there. It was heated. It was a snowstorm that night. But they had cameras, professionals, and what they were doing is trying to find the right words to use to put on this initiative 42 and 42A before they defined how it would show up on the ballot. Now, I don't know who put it on. I know the research group came out of Mississippi, but it smelled like Republicans to me. It smelled like a Haley Barber group to me. That's what it smelled like, but I'm not saying it was. But I'd seen some of the work that group had done before, that research group, ISS or anyway, MISS maybe. So there was a lot of effort done to get the right words to put this on the ballot. So it's a lobbying group to put it on.
You're just trying to get more money, that's all.
Yeah, and the other thing for young people here, a lot of talk about sheriffs. When I was growing up, the second highest law enforcement official in the world, the highest one was the law enforcement official was the chief of police of Mexico City. The second highest was the sheriff of Pearl, Hines County, because that's when we had liquor that was legal but illegal but legal if you had a black market, and the sheriff collected tax. So that's history.
He was a tax collector too.
The tax collector, yeah.
We have 2 items, 2 very important items to finish up with. One is a movement that's going on in Mississippi that is trying to get conservatives together. As Tom said, was it Tom who said this? We've moved from the conservative, we've passed over to the conservative, no, it was